Hello everyone, it's Ted Bauman here, editor of the Bauman Daily with your weekly Friday video. I'm still in South Africa. I'm going to be here until next week, and after that I'll be back in Atlanta. But for now, I am reporting from here. And it's interesting that I am because this country has the potential to benefit enormously from things that are happening in the global environment. So let's start with why I think that. Here is a picture of a metal called palladium. Palladium is used in the production of catalytic converters and various other things, but the bulk of palladium production is used for catalytic converters. Here is a picture of a catalytic converter. It's been cut so that you can see how it looks on the inside. But essentially, it is a critical way to try to reduce global emissions from the use of automobiles. Now, why should that matter? Well, one of the key things about palladium is that it is uh, produced in only a few parts of the world. And those parts of the world include the one I'm in right now, but also a country which is very much in the news. So let's look at what's happening to the current price of palladium. Now, here's a chart that goes back actually about 10 years or so, but Palladium has been higher, but look at that big green bar on the right-hand side. It is just jumped. That's a weekly chart. It has jumped just dramatically in the last week or so. And the reason for that is going to become clear in a moment as I explain. Now, here is a chart that shows platinum, which is a related metal. This is a 5-day chart going back 5 days. I'm recording this on Thursday. And again, you're seeing quite dramatic increases in the price of what are called platinum group metals. Now, platinum group metals are only found in a few parts of the world, but they are very important to the global economy. Number one, because they are used, as I said, in the production of catalytic converters, which helps to reduce emissions from conventional automobiles. Now, a lot of people have thought, well, because EVs and electrical vehicles are going to become so popular in the future, maybe, it's not a good time to invest in these metals because they're, really not going to be in demand in the future. Well, there are arguments that these metals could play an important role in the EV sector, particularly with alternative battery technologies, but let's leave that for another day. Critical thing is that the global geopolitical situation means that you could potentially benefit in the short term by investing in companies that produce these metals. Why is that? Here's a chart that shows the world's biggest, palladium producing countries. The US and Canada are one on the left-hand side. On the top right-hand side, Russia is another, Zimbabwe, and South Africa, where I am, that beautiful Y-front flag, as we call it, is down there. Now, why do I show you that? Well, here's a chart that shows production of palladium and platinum. Let's start with platinum on the right-hand side. South Africa, 78% of world platinum production. Russia, 13%. Others, pretty much minimal. Now, what about palladium? Palladium is the one that everybody's interested in. Well, Russia produces 44%, South Africa 37%, USA 6%, others lesser. But the key thing is that, as you're going to find out, that South Africa and Russia production is linked together. And if Russia invades Ukraine, that 44% of world supply might disappear overnight thanks to sanctions. Now, what would that mean for you if you were to invest in palladium producing companies or even palladium futures if you manage to find a way to do that? Well, let's start with what's happening here in South Africa. Here's a picture of Table Mountain, taken from Tableview. It's a little suburb up on the west coast. I was there the other night having a joel with some of my friends, as we call it in South Africa. And some of you asked to know where I live. Well, my house here in South Africa is in that cluster of houses on the bottom right-hand quadrant of the picture. I'm not going to tell you exactly which one because somebody might want to shoot a missile at me if I miss a pick and lose money on it. But anyway, I'm down there, and here is a picture of my house taken from the balcony. Some of you asked to see it, and there it is. So that's where I live. Now, why am I going through all this? Well, it turns out that some of the world's biggest producers of palladium are right here in South Africa, and now is a brilliant opportunity to buy them as a short-term play on geopolitical conflict. Now, here's what is likely to happen. We know that over the last couple of weeks, there has been a lot of back and forth between the United States, NATO, and Russia about the situation in Ukraine. Essentially, the argument that the Russians are putting forward is that they do not want the Ukraine to become part of the NATO sphere of influence. They don't want NATO and American weapons to be based in Ukraine because it's right in their underbelly. Now, whatever you think of that argument, the key thing is that if the Russians do decide to undertake military action against Ukraine, not only would it be a complete break with the basically the whole world order that has existed since World War II and the end of the Cold War, but it would also result in probably massive sanctions against Russia, which would include cutting off their export ability or their ability to export things like palladium. Now, who's one of the biggest producers of palladium in the world besides Russia? Well, it's a company called Sibanye-Stillwater. It's called Sibanye-Stillwater for two reasons. One is that the Sibanye is their key mine up in Rustenburg, which, if I point roughly in that direction, is where the mine is. Several thousand kilometers up that way. But also because Sibanye-Stillwater's management, led by the inimitable Neil Froneman, bought the Stillwater mine in Montana, which is the world's biggest, North America's biggest producer of palladium and also platinum. And those two mines, basically the Sibanye mine, the Stillwater mine, are one of the biggest sources of palladium other than Russia. Now, if Putin invades Ukraine and sanctions emerge or slapped on Russia, I predict this company is going to go crazy. Now, here's one of the key things about companies like that. They tend to be, in a sense, seen as commodity cycles. They tend to be seen as companies which, benefit from the growth of the global economy. So they go up when the global economy is going up. They go down when the global economy is going down. They also tend to be seen as counter-cyclical against the dollar. So there are various different ways that you can play these things. But one of the things that you can very rarely do, but which we can do right now, is potentially to invest in them in the anticipation of a sudden supply shock on the side of palladium. Now, here's a chart that shows Sibanye-Stillwater's chart. It goes back to, it's 3 months. But as you can see, from mid-January, when the Russian noises, began to increase, when it became clear that there was something going to happen potentially in Eastern Europe, the company's stock took off. It has risen dramatically since then. The red line, of course, is the S&P 500. So if you'd invested in this stock at the beginning of the year, you'd be up very substantially. You would have beaten pretty much anything else in the market these days. Now, here's a chart that takes us a little bit further back. It goes back actually 6 months. And the reason I'm showing this is to show that the momentum for this stock has increased very significantly. That's the 21-day exponential moving average in green, has moved well above the 50. And at the bottom, you can see that the MACD, moving average convergence data, has very, very positive at the moment. Now, it's not rare that I give away or recommend a specific stock in my newsletters. And of course, I'm doing this as a free recommendation to everybody. So don't blame me if it doesn't work out. But I think right now is a very, very good time to be looking at Sibanye-Stillwater as a potential beneficiary if Russia does invade Ukraine. I think this is a very good opportunity to grab that stock. You could make very, very good short-term gains simply because they are the only other place in the world that you can get large amounts of palladium other than Russia. If the Russian supply disappears, this company could take off like a rocket. And so could your portfolio if you buy it now. Now, I'm not promising anything. And again, I don't do this very often. But I think this is a good opportunity. And since I'm here in South Africa, since it's a South African company, I'm very patriotic with this country. I think it's a good time to consider doing that. Now, one of the ways you could do it is to buy call options. I haven't looked at the options market on SBSW stock, but I bet the action is very interesting at the moment. You might be paying a very high premium because clearly I'm not the only person in the world who's thought of this play. But I think buying SPSW over and holding it for over a 2 or 3 month time frame could be very lucrative. Anyway, that's me for this week. I will talk to you again next week, by which time I will be back in the United States. I'll see you then.